in today's video I'm going to be talking all about how I use Vinted and some tips and tricks on how to sell items on there fast and the simplest way to do that as a seller to get your money in your bank quickly. These are all my tips on selling your pre-loved items in the quickest and simplest way possible, so if you need a bit of help getting started then this is the video for you. This is the sort of video that I wish that I'd have clicked on when I had just started out on Vinted, so I hope you find it useful, and if that sounds good then keep on watching. Hello, my name is Grace if you're new around here, and I've got two little boys, and I started using Vinted properly around 18 months ago when my boys started growing or outgrowing their clothes, and I wanted a little bit of an extra income just to sell their clothes on. I really like Vinted. I find it a very reliable, quick way to make a little bit of cash on the side, and it's a good way of recycling your children's old clothes especially. It doesn't have to be children's clothing. I have now branched out and I do sell other stuff, but that is how I got into selling on Vinted. A very easy way as a seller to get rid of your things that you're not wearing anymore, especially like children's clothes, because they do grow so quickly and you don't have any fees. What you sell, the price that you put is the price that you get. The way that I think that it works is, as a buyer, you end up getting a little bit of a charge, like maybe like £1 if something is about £5. Vinted add on like maybe £1, and then the buyer will also pay for postage. So as a seller, you put a price, the buyer will buy your item and they will pay for postage. And I'm going to be talking all about how that process works and some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. So as I said, I hope you find it useful, and let's get into the tips now. My first tip to getting items sold quickly on Vinted is to take lots of pictures of your items in a bright, well-lit area with quite a neutral background. I feel that this just makes your Vinted wardrobe look really streamlined. So I actually take my pictures mostly in the room that I'm in now because there's lots of natural light. I've got a great, it's a totter and tumble playmat, and it's very neutral, the background, and I feel that this just takes the pictures of the clothes really nicely. I also find that if you take pictures of the items looking quite presentable, so they're not all like sometimes when I'm because I also buy on Vinted, and I feel like sometimes you search for stuff and you see like a t-shirt and it's all screwed up, like I wouldn't even click on that. So try and make your items look nice and presentable, neat, clean and tidy. You need to be honest about if there's any imperfections on it, take pictures of it, write it in the description, all that kind of stuff. But definitely I find that I've sold a lot of items taking clear pictures of the products that I'm trying to sell on. And just personally, I find that as well, that if you've got all of your items looking nice and streamlined, it just makes your Vinted wardrobe look a little bit better. You've got more chance of sellers trying to buy a bundle from you, which means they're going to try and buy a couple of items from you at once, which is even better. So the second tip that I've got is to know your price. Like in your head, you kind of know how much something is worth. If something's been really well worn, if you didn't pay that much for it to begin with, you don't want to be setting a high price. But if you've paid a little bit more for something and you know that it's genuinely not been used very much, I feel like you can set your price a little bit higher. Vinted does recommend that you put stuff quite low, like t-shirt, like I put my children's t-shirt, sometimes you just get £1. But if you're selling a load of things, all the pounds obviously add up. But if you genuinely know that something is worth a little bit more, know your price in your head. Say you want about £5 for something, for example, I would usually set the price on Vinted around £6 or £7 because buyers are going to make you offers. It's a bit of a marketplace. People are going to send you offers in. Most likely, if you've got something that you want about £5 for, if you set it about 6 or 7, someone might end up offering you about £5. And if nothing comes in after a few weeks and people are going a bit lower, you can always decide, okay, I don't mind, it's been on there for a little while, you've given it a chance to try and get £5, you've set your price, and it's, you can just give it a go really. Like I say, I have some stuff that's quite cheap, like I put things on there for like £1, but then I've also had like little H&M sets that the boys have literally only worn for a photo shoot. H&M are currently they'll still be selling the item for double the price, and I still try and set a price of about £10, for example. I'm just making an example for you, and I have sold items for a good price. So you can get a decent price for things, but things like t-shirts, basic things, you do want to be going quite low, because the whole point of it is to kind of quickly sell your things on. And my My third tip, which is probably my best tip and my favourite tip, especially as a seller, is to set your postage to only in-post locker. So when you set up a Vinted account, you can go into your account and you can go onto the postage settings, and automatically, I believe, Vinted gives you as a seller lots of different options. So when someone buys your product, so they buy a dress off of you or they buy some shoes off of you, they can choose what service you're going to post it with. So they could choose Royal Mail, they could choose Avery, Hermes that used to be, Yodel, in-post. There was loads of different options. But as a seller, say you're selling loads of different things, you could be selling like 3 different items, and someone chooses the in-post locker, someone chooses Yodel, and you've got to go to each different one. So what you want to do is you want to disable all of those postage options and just select the in-post locker. And the reason you want to do that is it's the quickest and easiest way as a seller to get your items sent out to someone. One, you don't even require a printer. All the other ones require you to have a printer, so it's quicker. You don't have to faff about printing a label, sticking it on the parcel, all that kind of stuff. You don't need a printer for in-post locker. Literally what will happen is they will send you, once the buyer buys your item and it's all confirmed, Vinted send you a in-post QR code, or they'll send you like a digital label, and you take that to the in-post locker and you scan it through the screen. It opens one of the locker doors for you. You put it in, you close the door, and they then send you a new QR code which you take a picture of, and that is your digital receipt to say that you've sent that. And then it all goes through the system, through Vinted, through in-post, and it's so quick, it's so convenient. There's loads of lockers around everywhere now. That's I think it's such a popular way of sending a product, and it just saves you having to have like different options to send. I mean, Vinted recommends that you have a lot of options as a seller because it attracts more buyers. I personally don't think that's true. I have literally just got the in-post options. So basically my buyers, if they buy something off of me, they can choose to have an in-post locker, and that will send it either to their house, or they can pick it up from a locker near them, which is slightly cheaper to do. And I've found no problems. I've still attracted lots of buyers, and it's just such a quick and convenient way as a seller. No printer required. It's so easy. So basically you've literally got your item. It feels really weird the first time you do it because you're like, there's literally nothing on there. There's no address, there's no label. I think basically once the person on their end gets to it, they stick something on as proof. It is quite weird because you're like, this has got no address on it. Like, it does feel a bit strange to start off with, but once you get used to it, it's so easy. And that is just the quickest way to send things as a seller. So I really recommend just having that as your postage if you're starting off, unless you don't mind going to like the Yodel drop off or the Avery drop off. But I personally find in-post locker is the best and quickest way to sell on Vinted. Also, I forgot to say, another amazing thing about using the in-post locker is they are 24/7. So literally all week long, the lockers will be open, and you can check before you travel to your locker that there's availability, because sometimes the lockers are full. So you just want to check in-post locker near me, you Google it, and then you put your postcode in, and it will tell you which lockers have got like different sizes. So there's small, medium and large. So obviously if you're only sending like clothing, small is all you need. Sometimes I've had to use medium, but it's just so quick and convenient. And yeah, before you travel to it, do check that there's availability near you. But yeah, I definitely recommend that. And I wish that I'd done that sooner. It's actually only something I've done fairly recently. My next tip to making Vinted really quick and easy and convenient is that you can buy these mailing bags like so. If you're just selling like small clothing, they're so handy. So you can get, these are A4. You can get A3 for slightly bigger clothing, and they are just so practical for putting like small items of clothing in. You don't have to do this, but I find that this is a really quick and easy way as a busy working mum of sending your items out. I love using these. All you have to do, you put the item in, because it's plastic, it's waterproof, it's really handy, and then there's like a seal there, and you can literally take that off, close it, and it's ready. Like, you don't have to wrap anything, you don't have to sellotape it unless you want extra protection. Like, if it's a higher value clothing item, you could do that. So quick and easy. I love using them. Another tip that I've got is to start saving your own postage bags and packets. Like, I started saving like my bags from Amazon, and then I've got, these are all my like ones that I'm going to reuse and recycle. Then it's economical. It saves you money if you're just reusing other bags. I'll show you this one. This is quite a nice big one that I've got from Next. And again, another thing that's quite good about like reusing clothing bags is that they have that seal. So it's really easy for you to reuse it. But that's like a really economical way. You're recycling the bag. So I've got like a big envelope here of different size ones that I will use once my like other ones run out. So that's a nice little tip there. When my friend started selling on Vinted, she actually asked me like, when am I going to get my money? So you do have to trust the process with Vinted. So the way that you will get your money is you do have to be a little bit patient. So the way that it works, that as the seller, you have to send the item out, and it all kind of goes through, especially if it's digital, like through the sending process of in post. You send it to the buyer, they will get notified that it's been sent, and then it will take a couple of days depending on how quick this like postage service is. And once the buyer receives the item, I've had, like when I buy things, something comes through the door and it obviously like goes through the system because Vinted knows when I've received it, and it like gives me a little nudge to say your order has been marked as received. And then as a buyer, you have an option to say everything is okay, like basically everything is as the seller's described, there's no problems with it. Or that is also the point in which the buyer could report an issue if, say, if something's counterfeit or it's not quite right. So it's quite safe for buyers, it's quite safe for sellers. And then at that point, the buyer will put everything is okay. As soon as that is done, it then goes through the kind of like system, and Vinted will then say everything's been marked like as receipt, or the item has been delivered. You will get your money automatically in the next like 2 to 3 days. I usually find that it's quite quick. It's usually within a week of posting my item. I post it, the buyer then receives it, then it kind of goes through the system, and then it kind of goes into Vinted, it goes into your account, and then you have to withdraw it to your bank. And then once you've withdrawn it into your bank, usually within a week, you usually get your money, depending on how quick everything is, but typically it takes about a week to get your money, so which I think is really quick, considering there's no selling costs, there's no selling fees or anything like that. I think that it's a really quick and convenient way to just earn a little bit of extra money. So yeah, you do have to be a little bit patient in order to get your money, and trust the process. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you've got used to it, you'll be fine. So another tip that I have for selling on Vinted is to keep all of your things that you're selling in one handy place. So I've got like an old box here of like the children's clothes. I'm not actually selling loads at the minute, but I keep it all in one place. So when it comes to the time that someone's bought your item, you're not like scrambling around, you're not trying to find it in your children's wardrobe or your own wardrobe. You know exactly where it is. It just keeps it all separate. It keeps it in one place, so you can quickly go and find it, pop it in your postage bag, and you can get it out to the locker quickly. And then in the same strength, I also keep all of my postage bits in one sort of similar place. So in that big envelope, I'll keep everything. I'll also pop some sellotape in there, and I keep that under the stairs. So I know as soon as I've sold something, I head under the stairs, I get my postage bag, get the item of clothing and put it in, and it's just really quick and simple, and it keeps it organised for you too. I'd also recommend trying to sell for the current season that you're in, or the one that you're about to go into. So you don't want to be selling a thick winter coat in the height of summer. I don't think anyone's going to be looking for that kind of thing. You want to be selling summer hats or sunglasses or sandals, the things that your children might have been wearing like last summer. You want to sell around spring or summer. So it's currently the end of winter now, so I'm looking into like getting the boys t-shirts from last summer out, checking over what I'm going to sell and what's not worth selling, putting it in a donation like towards charity, that kind of thing. And then also I would say another tip that I've got is that give it about 6 months. Like some things sell really, really quickly, and some things do take a bit of time. If you know it's actually worth hanging on to, keep hold of it. But like for t-shirts that you've only got on for like £1 or £2, if they've never moved, after like between 3 and 6 months, have a little sort through your like box of clothes that you've got on Vinted and just donate some things that you think, actually, I'm only going to get £1 for this, I'm hanging on to it, it's taking up space in my house, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Give it to the charity shop, get rid of it, you're just holding on to it for clutter's sake. Whereas this, for example, I've got a beautiful Jojo Mum and Baby sleep suit. It's so beautiful. It's in pretty good condition. It's got one stain at the back, but the front is immaculate. I paid about £20 for this. I'm not kidding. It's so expensive. I bought this when I just had one child. I've had it on Vinted for like £3 for months and months and months and months, and it hasn't had. I think sometimes it's a bit like an algorithm. I think it's got a bit lost in the Vinted world, but I'm a little bit reluctant. I keep thinking I should just put this in a charity shop soon, but I still think that this is worth someone coming onto my Vinted and like giving me £2 or £3 for it. So I'm going to hang on to it for a little bit longer. But that's just personal choice. I think you'll know, like if I've got just like a t-shirt that's on there for £1, and it's not, no one's shown any interest, after a few months I will just put it in a charity bag and just cut my losses. Then last but not least, I would recommend leaving feedback. It will just build up your Vinted profile a little bit. So like just saying pleasant buyer, lovely buyer, or just put like 5 and like a little star. Like just leave your feedback, because they will hopefully in return your buyer will leave you feedback, and it just builds up your profile, and people are going to buy, especially from a trusted seller with like 5 stars. So it just helps build your profile up a little bit. So I hope you found these tips useful. It's a little bit different, but I thought I would just make this video because I love Vinted. I think it's such a good, quick, easy way to reuse, recycle. I use it as a buyer and as a seller, and I really, really enjoy using it. And I just thought I'd put some tips out there for anyone who might be starting out, or even if you've been using it for a little while and you don't get the hype. Like, I feel like 2 years ago, like Vinted was not as big as it is now, but I love the fact that it's like so mainstream and everyone's using it. So I really hope that you've enjoyed these tips. And if you are new around here and you like content about mum life, please consider hitting subscribe, because I make lots of content all around mum life, as you could probably tell, because most of this has been me talking about selling my children's clothing. So yeah, and also check out my Vinted if you have got young boys in particular, because I'm selling all my pre-loved children's clothing, and my username is Graceyblossom, like my YouTube channel. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.